Hello and welcome to the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. What is Karmic Prayer? I admit I came up with that term to make you curious, but trust me, it's a real thing. And I want to use it, or I came up with it, in order to compare the way religious people and enlightenment people manage their lives. So religious people, and I by no means do I mean any offense, they manage their lives with obedience and prayer. They listen to the rules, they stick to the rules, and they pray. Enlightenment people, on the other hand, they manage their lives with meditation. Do you pray? Do you ask God for favors? Do you try to change God's mind? Do you beg God for forgiveness or favors? The thing is, if you truly believe in God, you can't believe in prayers. The two are mutually exclusive. Why? Because God is unwillingly. There's nothing happening that God does not want to happen. Whatever God wants will happen. Whatever happened, God wanted to happen. So if it's logically useless to pray, because you can't change God's mind, why do people still pray? I believe people pray because praying has a history. And the roots of praying, they probably go way back, 50,000 years, 100,000 years. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So people used, in the very early days, people used to pray to the forces of nature, which they call gods. Or they tried to divine, meaning they tried to predict what the gods had in mind and then take advantage of their apparent knowledge of the future. Around 450 BC, there was a kind of a religious revolution. People like Buddha, Zarathustra, Lao Tzu, they tried to put an end to this. They tried to put an end to prayer, to sacrifice, and divination. And they showed the world a new way, and that new way was enlightenment. Stop religion, do enlightenment. So the new paradigm is, instead of praying to the invisible forces of nature, meditate and know them. Know nature, know yourself. How? Stop praying, start meditating. So that religious revolution is known as the Axial Age. And I link to a blog post in the video details. 400 years later, Jesus brought the same message to the Western world and created Christianity. But while sacrifices and divination did not make it into Christianity, prayer still did. Why? It's just a die-hard custom. How did God set up the world? There is obviously an external world, which we all share, and then there is our apparent, individual, internal world. Apparent because our internal world is not entirely individual. The deeper we go inside, the more cosmic it becomes again. And it's a bit hard to put this in the picture, because it's a kind of four-dimensional setup, but let me try. So here's the picture. So our individual internal world comprises our thoughts, feelings, and so on. It's basically a layer of our mentality between the external world and the internal cosmic world. Jesus called the internal cosmic world the kingdom of heaven. And he explicitly stated that the kingdom of heaven is within. Okay. So what about the internal cosmic world? How does that work? Think of the internal cosmic world as God's mind. Yeah? And in his mind, God creates the universe, the external world we experience. And the external world is ruled by laws, scientific laws. It's a chemical, mechanic, energetic mechanism, framework mechanism that runs on its own. Yeah? So in a way, science is right. There is no God in the external world. Yeah? And God does not interfere in the external world. And why is God not in the external world, or only indirectly as a creator? Because God is spirit. And as mentioned in the Old Testament, he is an all-consuming spirit. So if God touched the external world, it would probably go up in flames. So we have God and we have his mind and the universe. Why does the universe not go up in smoke right now? Because there are layers between God and the universe. And these layers are incidentally mentioned in the Genesis. It's a layer of so-called water, yeah, and then in that water God inserts a sheet, double E, of so-called air. Yeah, so we get the water above, the sheet, the water below. And in the water below, God withdraws a part of that to make space for the earth, which is the physical universe. So there are actually traces of this in the Genesis, and if you have the eyes to see, also in other God myths. Yeah. So, but the conclusion is, if we try to pray to God in the external world, the prayer goes unanswered. Science can explain natural laws very well, but it can't explain the purpose of these laws. In the context of enlightenment, karma is the sum total of all scientific laws. And karma can reveal the purpose of these laws. And the purpose of these laws is not only to run the universe, but also to push evolution. Yeah? So in very simple terms, karma is the law of action and response. What goes around comes around. As you sow, so you reap. Yeah? And all karmic responses we receive are responses of laws, scientific laws. And as such, they are undeviatingly just. And they are oblivious to prayer. Yeah? So let me bring up another picture. So how does karma further our personal evolution? Every wrong action which we do leads to failure in the external world. And that is a negative response to us. Yeah? And when we analyze why we failed, we find the reason, and then we adjust and we try again. And every time we try again, we try a little bit better. And that's why science won over religion. People use medicine instead of prayer now, or they go to a surgeon instead of trying to pray cancer away. Yeah? Or they use a seatbelt instead of relying on God to save them when they fly through a windshield in case of an accident. So does God not interfere at all? Actually he does, but differently than commonly thought. God interferes through the internal connection, and he does so by guiding us. Let me bring up a picture. So in order to guide us, he uses an agency, and this agency is the higher self. Christ and the higher self are the same thing. So that's why Jesus said, nobody gets to the Father, which is God, except through me. But By me, he did not mean himself, Jesus, but the cosmic Christ within him, the higher self. Realizing the higher self or realizing Christ is known as illumination. So you can think of Christ as a title. Jesus Nazareth became Jesus Christ upon his illumination. And you can get the same title if you want. And that's the reason why enlightenment is agnostic. Yeah? You don't need to bother about God actually. All you need to do is connect to the higher self. So the laws of the external world, karma, teaches us through action and response. And the higher self teaches us through guidance and inspiration. So there is a teamwork going on between the two. And it's very important to become aware of that teamwork. It is summarized in the Enlightenment aphorism, I recognize every circumstance of my life as a particular dealing of God with my soul, or rather, the higher self with my soul. So when Charles West said, we turn to God for help when our foundations are shaking, only to learn that it is God shaking them, he came very close to the truth. But it's not God who is shaking our foundation, but karma. But when we contemplate about our shaking foundations and ask for, and turn inside to ask for guidance, it will be explained to us. I said before that the purpose of karma is evolution. There is a collective and there is personal evolution. For example, nature brought species to evolve through the eat and be eaten cycle. That's the cycle, that's collective karma. COVID-19 is collective karma as well. It forces us and society to come up with new ways of interacting and conducting business. How does karma push personal evolution? By reflecting our weaknesses, and this is very important to understand. A weakness is always the absence of a capability or a weak capability. Let's take the example of a misanthrope. A misanthrope is incapable of loving his brothers and sisters in soul. That's his weakness. It's the absence of the capability to love. And his thoughts and feelings and action and words will project his misanthropy into the external world. And karma will respond and react by making him a lonely person. So at best, the misanthrope wonders why he is always lonely. And at worst, he will use his karma, his loneliness, to justify his misanthropy. So people are bad because they never care. And because the misanthropic ego does not look inside and does not listen to the higher self, there is also no guidance. So that's why religious people can get so frustrated sometimes. They follow the rules and they expect God to reward them, and when things go bad they say, why am I getting this? I didn't do anything bad. And then they pray, God, please make this bad thing go away. But there's even a worse reaction. So for example, when we think that our adverse karma is a punishment. So because we don't understand why we follow the rules but bad things keep happening to us, it must be some kind of a punishment. Means we must have sinned. And there is another good juxtaposition of religion and enlightenment. In the context of religion, karma is punishment. In the context of enlightenment, karma is law, impersonal law. And there's a little anecdote in the New Testament that shows how deep this belief in sin was ingrained in people's minds at Jesus' time. So The story goes that Jesus and his apostles, they passed by a starving child. And then the apostles asked Jesus, why is God punishing that child with starvation? Because children don't sin. But of course there is no punishment. The child is starvation, I don't know why. There's a reason for it. The parents are poor or the parents are dead. There's a law, the law at work. The law of action and response is at work. So if you are prone to think about that if something bad happens to you, it's because you sinned, fear no more. Sin is failure. And you can analyze why you failed and you can try again, always. But there is an even worse religious reaction to adverse karma, and that's when we make someone or something responsible for our adverse karma. When we enter into blame storming. And blame storming, that's where the devil comes from. So it gets really, really nasty. And that's a very, very slippery slope. So, coming back to our weaknesses, our flaws, adverse karma is a direct reflection of our flaws. So, either we are not aware of our weakness, and then the purpose of karma is to make us aware, or we are aware of it, but we don't want to do anything about it, because we're lazy or because we're bitter. But karma will not give us a break. It will keep pushing us. And yes, the way karma works in this respect is karma working as the law of attraction. We project something negative into the world, get something negative back. Let me bring up a picture for that. So for example, our weakness could be a negative expectation. For example, the subconscious expectation to be abused by other people. And what will that do? It will attract abusers to us. So now, as I said before, karmic pressure escalates, and the longer we wait to do something about our weaknesses, for example, changing our expectation from being abused to being taken care of, the higher the karmic pressure. Let's take our example of the misanthrope. So karma will make him more and more lonely. But if the misanthrope knows actually of his weakness, he knows he hates people, but he refuses to do anything about it, karma will bring in the artillery. And in his case, it will be that he connects him to a person the misanthrope will actually fall in love with. Yes. And that will force him or her to change and to cultivate love. So what is karmic prayer? In essence, karmic prayer is creative meditation. There are two kinds of meditation. There's scientific meditation and creative meditation. We use scientific meditation when we seek some kind of understanding. So for example, we meditate on something that happened in the external world, or we want to explore the depths of our subconsciousness in our mind, or we want to explore higher aspects of ourselves. Creative meditation, on the other hand, we use to change our life circumstances. The same thing we actually try to do with prayer. But instead of begging to an external entity, please help me, we use creative imagination and creative feeling to work the law of attraction in a positive and effective way. And I believe that if ever a prayer was actually successful, there was some kind of creative imagination or visualization at play. So whenever you find yourself in an emergency situation, don't pray. Use creative imagination. Let's compare this. A prayer is a dialogue, and it's done on the level of thoughts, and it can also be abstract, like, please save him. It's very abstract. Or worse, we express it in negative terms, like, please don't let him die. And this is a negation of an image, a negative image, the image of dying. And you can also see here how you use the law of attraction in the wrong way. So karmic prayer works best if you use imagination instead of words. Yeah, and you keep the visualization positive. You summon a strong feeling, for example, love, yeah, your love for the person in need. And you see the image, the positive image you want to express, for example, the person being healthy or safe or alive, as an actual reality and not something in the future. Yeah. But last but not least, don't do this alone. Yeah. Connect to the higher self inside and use him as the higher self as a source of spirit and guidance for your creative imagination. Yeah. It's really important to practice that creative meditation, because in case of emergency you don't have time to think, you just have time to do. Yeah. And this must come more or less automatically, hence you need to train it. There is a next or higher level to creative imagination, and that's when we partake in cosmic administration. Let me explain. So usually karma prods us to eliminate our weaknesses and develop our mental capabilities. When we have done this often enough in our lives, and we develop our strength, and our life becomes mostly free of negative karma, yeah, which consumes a lot of time and energy to remedy. Yeah. We can partake in cosmic administration. Partaking in cosmic administration becomes possible when we sync our personal meditations, our personal creative meditations, with that of the higher self. Let me bring up a picture. So we receive inspirations inside from the higher self and manifest them in the external world through creative meditation and the proper use of the law of attraction. So let's say the higher self wants something to manifest in the external world, and we are a good agency for bringing this about. Meaning we have the talent, we are willing, we are listening inside, and then the higher self will actually meditate through us to bring this about. And that will take our meditation to a whole new level. So for example, the higher self wants a book to be written. And if you're a writer, and that's a book you could write, you will be then subjected to a flow and boost of inspirations that reveal the story to you. In the case of cosmic administration, we can fall into a similar trap as we used to do with external prayer or praying to an external God. Let me bring up the picture for that. So we can receive inspirations from the higher self, but it is also possible to receive inspirations from external entities through what I call the telepathic noise. What is that? All intelligent beings, incarnate or carnate, continuously broadcast their thoughts and feelings, emotions and images. Yeah. And we all can pick it up. So all that together makes up the telepathic noise. And I wrote a blog post about it, and I'll put a link into the video description. So we can pick up inspirations from incarnate or discarnate centers of intelligence, which they continuously broadcast. So while you may be able to pick up these inspirations, you may not be the best person to turn these inspirations into reality. Yeah? For example, if you're a writer, and you may pick up an inspiration for a great writer software tool, yeah, and to be tempted to develop that software. But you're not a software developer and you don't have a software company. So it's not for you. and you should let the chalice pass. If you do that, don't worry, it's just a matter of time until the right person picks it up. This is the reason for the interesting phenomena called multiple discovery. That's the phenomena that certain inventions are made independently in different parts of the world without these inventors knowing of each other. Yeah. There's a Wikipedia post about it, and I put a link in the video description. So when personal ambitions coincide with cosmic ambitions and the circumstances are right, that's when the magic happens. That's when you get a Thomas Edison or an Alexander Graham Bell. So the best is always do not reach outside, better connect to the higher self inside. How to do that you can learn from the master meditation, and I'll put a link to that in the video description as well. Thank you for watching this episode of the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. Please help spread the light with a like and a share, and don't forget to subscribe. Love and light.